Greetings, everyone. I hope everyone's enjoying the spooky season. I hope everyone had a great Halloween. This episode is the end of harvest episode that I'm doing with my friend Jacob Curwen from the band All Hell, an excellent band. We've shared the stage together in several years ago. Too long, if you ask me. But we're doing this playlist episode. I love doing these things. It's a lot of fun doing a collaborative playlist, talking about the tracks, and we just kind of catch up. We talk about All Hell. We talk about stuff we've been checking out during the season. Now, one of the things that I did just for fun was 2 of the ultimate Halloween songs are conspicuously absent from Spotify. And since we use Spotify to do these collaborations, I just threw them on at the end of the episode for fun. And of course, I'm talking about To Walk the Night by Sam Hain and Ghost Walking by the Mighty Sphincter. I'd like to thank everyone who has joined the Everything Went Black Patreon. It definitely helps everything move along. For as little as $1 a month, you can support the podcast and get access to bonus material. For $5 a month, you can support the podcast, get access to bonus material, and get early access to all of the regular stream episodes. And then for sponsors, for $25, you get an ad read for a project, business, band, whatever you want to promote. Give me a custom ad read. I throw it in the front of the episode along with Portland Distro. And you can cancel at any time. You can do 1 month, call it a day, and you can do it as long as you want. Before we get going, I also want to shout out my brothers in the podcasting armada, the apocalyptic podcasters. Of course, on Monday, we have Horror Wolf 666, hosted by Brandon Legion, talking to the best of creators in the horror field. Old school, new school, luminaries, up-and-comers. He covers them all. On Tuesday, we have the only extreme metal podcast that I personally listen to, and of course, that is Into the Necrosphere, hosted by Jackie Smith. Wednesday, of course, is Everything Went Black Day. On Thursday, Necromaniacs drops. Join me and my co-hosts, Mike Scandato and Jeff Kashid. We break down all of the best new and old horror films. We give our opinions, and that's all they are, guys, just opinions. So if we don't agree with you, it's all good. That's all part of life's rich tapestry. And on Sunday, the Lord's Day, we get blasphemous and esoteric with Soul Knox, brought to you by Carl Hikara. And now, enjoy the episode. Yeah, it's been a while, man, since I spoke with you. How you doing?
Yeah, doing all right. It's been, I guess we talked a little bit earlier this year, and we did a podcast, 2 years ago?
That was a while ago, and that was for the Gimme Radio podcast that I used to host. And so that was a little different context. This one's a little bit more fun, a little more free form. And
right on.
Talk about the band. We could talk about movies, books, whatever. It's not like a specific format. And of course, we have this very cool playlist that we put together, which is going to be part of the show notes. And I like doing these types of episodes. Just talk about music and songs and all that.
Right on. Just see where it goes.
Yeah, no, totally. I see that you guys have been doing shows and staying busy and all that sort of stuff. So how's things going with All Hell?
Yeah, we've been not too busy. We recorded a new EP earlier. I think we talked about that a little bit. I recorded an EP earlier this year. We're still kind of figuring out what our best way to put that out is going to be. But I was hoping to get it out this year, but it'll most likely be early next year before it sees the light of day. But yeah.
It's been it's been a really strange year, just with release dates and vinyl backup, and it started off getting better, but things are still kind of weird.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I guess it's still better than it was last year because the vinyl backups towards the end of last year were insane. But I guess it's a little bit better now. But yeah, that stuff will be out at some point. I don't know who will put it out. We might do it ourselves or go through a small label or something. I'm not sure yet.
As far as playing shows go, How has that been? I mean, it's funny to think back on this year, and it's shows are kind of a normal part of life again. But there was definitely
Yeah,
that big step from like 2 years of not playing any shows, and then suddenly you're on stage. So how did that work
yeah,
out for
for
you?
sure, for sure. So we did a couple of gigs, I guess, towards the end of last year. I guess last fall was the first time things really started opening back up. We just did a few one-offs, and then earlier this year, and then we did a short little run uh, back in July that went pretty well, other than the end of it. We all ended up with COVID, so had to miss the last few dates.
That's yeah, I guess that's kind of the way of the world these days, man. On
Yeah,
the last tour that we did in like spring, we went out with Origin and Abysmal Dawn and
yeah,
this band Clitoris from Canada, and I think everyone got sick, and I'm not sure if it was COVID or what. I know I got sick, and I was like,
yeah,
I have the shakes and everything. I'm like, I think I have COVID, but it turned out to be negative. So it's just this weird
right.
paranoia that everyone has.
Yeah, for sure. And it sucked. It was like all of our first time getting COVID in the entire, like, 2 years or whatever since it started, really going wild. So it's pretty lame, but
Not to make this thing about COVID, but did you have any like long lasting symptoms or anything like that? Anything lingering?
I haven't had anything like too bad as far as like I never lost like smell or taste or anything or had any major things. I think I get like a weird heart thing now and
Oh
then,
wow, damn,
but like I don't know, it doesn't like it sounds worse than it is, I think,
damn.
It's just a weird little I don't know. But hopefully it'll be all right.
Hopefully, or not.
Yeah,
Yeah.
who knows? Still, no one seems to know what the hell the, any of the effects or long term effects are. Again, not to make it about COVID. It's super weird because you ask people that have had it, and it depends on like the strain and everything too. It's just like it seems like it's completely different for everyone.
Yeah. Now, just talk about the EP a little bit. You played
Yeah.
me some of the covers that you guys did earlier
Yep.
this year.
Yeah.
What's the new record sound like? What's the new material sound like on the EP?
So the new stuff that we did for the EP, um, I guess it's kind of a little bit more like our earlier stuff. So we like the intention was to do like we're in this in between labels time. So there are a few songs off the very first record that I wanted to redo closer to how we've done them live for the past several years. And so we did a few of those songs off the first record redone, and then I also, while we were thinking along those lines, I wrote a few new songs that are kind of in line with what the early like first and second All Hell records sounded like, but just through the lens of what we've been doing since then. So it's kind of like a little bit of a throwback, but not.
That's pretty cool, man. Actually, we re-recorded a song too on Monarchy of Shadows. We re-recorded Path of Totality from the record that
Yeah,
came out like at this point like 10 years ago, I think.
yeah,
And yeah, sometimes it's nice to update songs that you've been playing in the set that are old because like you were saying, things change. You play it differently. Maybe some of the lyrics
yeah.
changed, like things like that. And
For sure.
yeah,
I know for me, like my entire vocal approach changed between the first and second records because I was, kind of finding my voice, I guess, like filling it out, figuring out what all hell was really.
yeah. So it's good that you're doing that.
Yeah.
Actually, it's funny. Old material and how it kind of sneaks up on you sometimes, and you realize like, wow, I really should revisit this. And one day I was sitting outside and I had I forgot what record I was listening to, but I had something going using Apple Music.
Yeah.
The record finished, and you know how like they start playing songs like that are fit within
Like
whatever algorithm.
recommended.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, there was some other stuff, and then this other song came on, and I was like, what the fuck is this? This sucks, man. And it was like Cold Dark Eyes by one of our songs. I'm like, the production's terrible. Like, the fucking guy can't sing. The guitar playing sucks. And I was like, oh, wait, I think I recognize this riff.
Whoops.
Yeah. So yeah, it's good to go back sometimes.
It's funny how much stuff changes for sure. And then on the newer, I think the EP is going to be 3 new songs, 3 old songs, and then that we did a Samhain cover that will probably come out on its own. I'm not sure yet. But for the 3 new songs, we actually got Nate Garnett from Skeleton Witch, who's been a buddy of ours for a long time. He does a solo on one of the songs and backing vocals on all 3 of the new songs. So.
Oh, cool. Yeah, no, that's great. Yeah. So now, are you enjoying the season? Like, I think similar to me, this is probably a season that you really, really dig. When it gets October, November kind of vibes.
Yeah, of course.
Have you been doing the? A lot of people try to do the 31 days of Halloween. Have you done anything like that?
Yeah, kind of. I've been trying to watch, a cool movie every day. So far, keeping the streak alive on that.
It's funny. I mostly watch horror films all the time anyway, and then
same.
When I try to one every night, inevitably I always somehow miss a night here and there.
Yeah, it's been kind of harder than I thought it would be. Just to, it's like, oh, I got a show this day. How am I going to watch a movie? But
yeah. Anything of note, new or old, that you've been checking out?
Let's see. I'm going to run through some of my head here. As far as new stuff, I mean, everyone's kind of talking about it, I guess, but I watched Terrifier 2 twice in the theaters, and I was pretty much blown away by that movie. It's one of those things where, I liked the first one, but I didn't necessarily love it. So I didn't really go in with any expectations. And so, I was just really impressed.
Yeah, I saw that. I've only seen it once so far. It's definitely something. I mean, I pre-ordered the Blu-ray, and apparently the cut that's going to come out on the Blu-ray is going to be different than the theatrical version. Yeah, so I'm glad I saw it. I'm glad I saw the long version. Apparently, it's going to be a cut version.
Yeah, I'm kind of I don't know. I guess I'm hard to please when it comes to horror movies, and I really don't have any complaints about it. So, I guess that's pretty good.
What I really enjoyed about it is the world building. There's now this whole mythology, or actually they don't even really lay it out just yet, but you're starting to see that Art the Clown, there's a depth to the character that wasn't hinted at in the first one.
Yeah, and I think the fact that it's not all laid out, it makes it more interesting.
And there's also this sword and sorcery element to it as well, which I really dug, man.
It's weird. I guess I've seen it being called a slasher epic, which I guess it would be.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't it's kind of weird that it's 2.5 hours long, but it doesn't really feel that long. I don't really necessarily think there are that many parts that could have been cut from it or should be cut from it,
I tend to agree on that for sure. And also, what I really appreciated about it is that it's you can see the obvious influences, and yet it's not nostalgic. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah. And that's what I really dig. It's you can see films that are all right, we're gonna make a slasher film, and then it feels like it's set in the 80s. There's this overt homage to that style. And you watch Terrifier 2, or and you can see there's a Sam Raimi influence. There's obvious more tropes from slasher films, and then Damien Leone just put a completely different twist on it, which really put it in a different level, I think.
Yeah, for sure. It's not just 80s worship or whatever. So that's cool. As far as old stuff that I've watched that I've enjoyed. Last night I just finished, the last 3 nights I was watching Argento's Three Mothers trilogy.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I've seen the first two several times, but last night was my first time watching Mother of Tears, and I enjoyed it a lot more than I expected to. So that's probably the coolest older movie that I've watched, that I wasn't already a fan of recently.
Yeah, definitely. That was pretty cool, but it's good, when you go back and after a few years and not seeing it, you know what I mean? Like I remember not really being that into it when I watched it the first time, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's another one of those things where like I think that the mythos and world building is cool.
Oh yeah, definitely. Have you seen his newest film, Dark Glasses?
Oh yeah, I did. I just watched that last week, I guess. What'd you think of it?
All right. It takes a lot for me not to like an Argento film. Like, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
but I as a fanboy, I like it. I think it's one of his best films that he's done in like decades, actually. And
Right.
however, I'm not saying that it's not beyond criticism. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. I thought it was pretty good. I kind of wish there would have been some more cool kills in it, but it started off really strong. And like, I think the story overall like worked. There's still those weird little Argento moments like with the snakes and stuff. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, we did an episode on Necromaniacs about it. Me and Mike, Mike Scandato, and Mike is more of an aficionado on Italian horror films. I mean,
right.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very much a fan, but Mike knows all the minutia about all the different directors, and he's seen pretty much all those films.
Right.
Anything that you read recently? I know that you and I go back and forth about books a lot.
Oh, yeah. I've been, the last stuff I was reading, you may have read this. I got a compilation. I think it's called Cthulhu 2000. It's from like 95 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
There's some, it's mostly good. It's a little bit hit or miss, but I read for the first time, Ligatti's Last Feast of Harlequin. And I think it might be the best like mythos story that was written by someone other than Lovecraft. It's really good.
There was the Ligatti story I'd read in his I think Grim Scribe. It's
I think that's the one it's in.
There was definitely one particular one particular short story in that collection that stands out. I'm trying to remember what it was.
The other one I really liked was the Ted Klein Black Man with Horn.
Yep.
Yeah, that one was cool.
Did you I don't know if we talked about this. There's a Ted Klein collection called Dark Gods.
Yeah, I haven't yet. I was actually looking last week at ordering that. I need to.
That's really good, man.
After I read that short story, I was like, man, I really need to dig into a little bit more of this. Have you read The Ceremonies, his like full length novel or whatever?
No, not yet. That's definitely on my list, though.
Yeah, that's a cool one. It's basically sort of a sequel to Arthur Macken's The White People.
Oh, okay.
So it actually ended up being kind of an influence on the last All Hell record, the last full length that we did. It's definitely some cool stuff going on in there.
I just pulled up the what's in this collection, and there's actually we got Ligatti, Last Feast of Harlequin. That's also kind of like for Ligatti, like a sword and sorcery type of story too, in a weird way. It's like his only like heroic fantasy, like.
Yeah, because I've read some of Ligatti's other stuff, I guess later stuff. It's a little bit more like abstract and nihilistic, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. Like this one's more like a traditional like story. Like
very. I like that it's like very Lovecraftian, but it doesn't touch at all on Lovecraft's mythos. But it just feels and reads like Lovecraft wrote it, basically.
Also, quite a bit of a Poe influence on it too. I feel.
Yeah.
In certain ways.
Yeah.
There's also Michael Shea as part of this collection. There's a short story called Fat Face, and that story is not. There's a collection of Shea's Cthulhu stories, and that's not the strongest one out of his mythos stories. But that story's pretty good. But there's definitely others of his that are pretty good. That are way better, I think.
I have to check that one out. I'm trying to think. There's another one. It's the one with like a really long title. That's a quote from Pickman's Model. I'm trying to remember who wrote it.
Let's see. Yeah, I'm drawing a blank on that one. But yeah,
it's like. Are you looking at a list of the stories in there?
I just closed the tab I had. I was trying to remember what it was because I knew there was one specific story in there that I was really excited about.
Yeah.
It's funny. I just started reading a novel, and it's funny. I heard about it on the Lovecraft E-Zine podcast, which is
okay.
I like that podcast because it doesn't talk about movies. It talks strictly about writing and books and literature and stuff. And I met some of those guys at the Necronomicon back in August.
Right. Yeah, I was going to ask how that was.
Oh yeah, we'll definitely talk about that. It was
all right, cool.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun, man. It's called Autobiography of a Werewolf Hunter, or Diary of a Werewolf Hunter. Sorry, it's by the author's name is Brian P. Easton. Okay. Now, I was reluctant, that title, little corny, in my opinion.
Right. Yeah.
But they gave it such a high rating that I had to check it out. They said it's like super dark. It's an interesting take on the werewolf and on werewolves in general. So I started reading it the other day. I'm maybe like a quarter of the way through the book already, and it's like a crime novel. The writing is like very pulpy and very much like in the crime genre.
Yeah.
It has like this military procedural element to it. It's very grim, very violent. It's almost like Captain Willard from Apocalypse Now, like that character.
Yeah.
Placed back in the United States, because there is a whole. This is the first book of a series, a trilogy.
Oh, okay.
So this kind of tells of his origin, right? And then he serves in Vietnam, and then he comes back to the States, and his family was killed by a werewolf, and then now he's on this, trajectory of destruction where he's going out and getting revenge, and it becomes a werewolf hunter, basically.
Nice.
The story, like, I know for you guys out there who are like listening to this and you're like, what the fuck is this guy talking about? It's like it's really, really well done. The writing is like I said, it's very pulpy, it's very to the point. Like, you're not going to find that language that you'll find in some weird fiction stories, but you'll find very succinct, kind of terse, tight writing style, which for this type of fiction I think is really good. But yeah, I recommend it.
Nice. It sounds good. I'll have to check it out.
So yeah, Necronomicon. It's funny. I haven't really talked about going to this thing on the podcast, but it's I had a lot of fun, man. I was only there for 2 days. I think the next time they do this, I'm going to go.
Is it like every other year they do it?
Yeah, it's every 2 years. It's in Providence. It's put on by the Lovecraft Society. I think that's what they're called.
Cool.
Yeah, they have just panels, and it's for fans. Like, this is not like a regular like chiller theater fest or something where you're going to go and there's whatever. Like, Kane Hodder is not going to be there.
I've definitely like looked at going to it before. It just has never worked out with scheduling and everything, but I want to for sure. Seems really cool. So they have like a lot of like, I guess, scholarly or academic panels and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It seems pretty cool.
It's like analytical. They'll pick topics and they'll go really deep into it. You know what I mean? And there was one about music, which I thought was really cool. Like, they had all these different composers and how Lovecraft and weird fiction like influenced their writing and their soundscapes and all this other stuff. There was like a review of Clive Barker's work,
Yeah, that's cool.
I thought that was interesting because he's not someone that I would say is particularly Lovecraftian in his approach to
Right.
writing, but
Yeah.
maybe the films like Hellraiser possibly has that kind of feel to it a little bit, I guess.
Yeah. I can see that. I can also see like what you're saying. I wouldn't exactly call it Lovecraftian.
Yeah. And then of course there was a vending area, which
Yeah, I'm sure there was I'm sure it'll be easy to spend all your money there.
Oh yeah, yeah. I went. I had saved up some money, and I had to put like a limit on what I was going to buy, and
Yeah.
I definitely went over that limit. You know, there was like artwork, original artwork. There was
Right.
books, like all the different publishers were there. You know, with volumes of their
Yeah.
books. And it was just like Hypothalamus Press was there, and like
Hmm.
all that stuff, and yeah, a lot of other like people that do podcasts. Like I said, the Lovecraft Easing people were there. Yeah, I talk with those people. I'm a big fan of I listen to their show every week, and yeah, it was just fun, man. It was good times. And then there was a loosely associated Cirith Ungol played down the street in this venue, and
Yeah.
yeah, so I was walking, to the festival or to the convention rather, and I ran into my friend Jeremy who plays guitar in Sanhedrin, that band. I don't know if you know that band.
Right. Yeah.
And who also plays in Black Anvil, and those are like some of my best friends are in that band. So I completely randomly ran into him, and he was the one who's like, yeah, we're opening for Cirith Ungol. They're playing down the street. It's kind of part of the festival. I mean,
It's a nice accident.
oh yeah. And the thing about it, it's like theoretically it was part of the festival, but you still had to pay to get a ticket. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but he ended up putting me on the guest list, which I thought was really cool. And I had this like
cool.
boxed seat like right above the stage. So I had this VIP like
Yeah, that's awesome.
this perch that I was watching the whole set from. It was pretty cool.
Very cool.
Yeah. So
Yeah. Plus, I mean, just being in Providence is always cool.
yeah, I felt like John Wilkes Booth or something like that, sitting in this like, box seat, had a clear shot at the stage and all that sort of stuff,
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, that's so anyway, the whole point of us, one of the main reasons is of course we, to catch up and say hello and talk about stuff, but we put together this playlist, and it's not necessarily a Halloween playlist because this is November, but thematically, it's the Samhain playlist. not to be, pretentious about it, but that extends into November. The Celtic pagan end of summer, end of harvest dips into November, and it brings on the dark season of winter. So that's kind of like the theme of our playlist. And we're not picking Halloween songs necessarily, but we're essentially picking material that typifies this time of year. And we came up with a pretty cool list, I thought.
Yeah, for sure. You sent me your stuff that you were adding, and like I said, there were several on there that I almost picked. So
now, one thing I want to add is that the obvious choice of Samhain is not on Spotify for whatever reason.
Yeah, I mean, maybe that's a good thing. Otherwise, we just would have picked every Samhain album, and that would have been the playlist.
Nonetheless, we have Glenn Danzig's material very well represented in this playlist. So let me ask you a question. I mean, I know you and I are both fans, and then they're huge influences on our creative output. So which is in descending order, how do you rate personally the three bands that Danzig plays in?
Oh man, that's such a tough question. Descending order.
Yeah, like what's your favorite, and then what's your least favorite?
I mean, it's kind of hard to say one's my least favorite, because my least favorite of these three bands is probably above above almost
Yeah.
any other band. All right, so I would say that probably Misfits are my favorite,
Okay.
just because I've been into them since I was 7 years old or whatever. I don't know. It's tough. Chronological order: Misfits, Samhain, Danzig. But like I said, Danzig is still, in my top three. So
Yeah. Well, yeah. There's only three. So yeah. I would have to say that for me, Sam Hain's my favorite because
yeah,
it's just I don't know, it hit this note with me when I was first getting I was the Misfits had already broken up by the time I got into their stuff, you know what I mean? Like the only
right.
reason I
Yeah,
know about the band is because of Metallica, you know.
yeah, for
And
sure.
and I was Misfits, they have cool like imagery, like I love horror movies. So I heard them first and then I found out about Sam Hain and I think Initium, the album cover for that was what I saw and I was like, man, these guys are like, oh, it's that
Yeah,
dude from Misfits.
yeah,
But that, like the music itself, it wasn't as like I hate to use the word campy for Misfits because I don't really consider them campy necessarily, but there's like a nod to the more
yeah.
campy B movie elements of horror.
Right.
But
Yeah,
with Sam Hain, I felt like the lyrics and the imagery and just the whole vibe of the band was like way more like
yeah,
darker and kind of spoke more to the caught the vibe of the stuff that I was into more at the time.
yeah. Absolutely. I mean,
Yeah,
I would also say that like now to me as a person who does music and stuff, Sam Hain is more relevant to me and my tastes now.
yeah. I would say after
And
that. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off.
I was gonna say also like Sam Hain is so unique. Like there's not really anything else like it. It's really hard to imitate, and it's not like anything that came before. It's not as easy to be like to compare it to something else, I guess.
Absolutely. I don't. There's. I mean, none of his bands sound anything like. No one has been able to really capture whatever vibe
Yeah,
he's gone his own wavelength completely. You know.
yeah,
But yeah, with Sam Hain though, it's like when last year we did The Shift. We covered that song, and yeah, it's funny. The guys in my band are way into Misfits and way into Danzig, but they kind of
right,
slept a little bit on Sam Hain. So like when we
yeah,
were listening to the song, The Shift, it was like that's all you want to do with the drums, just play this like fucking like really caveman thing and the
yeah,
guitars and the riffs. But when you put it all together, it just creates this whole thing, man. It's like it's greater than the sum of its parts. And I think that's kind of typical for like all of the Sam Hain stuff. It's like,
yeah, absolutely.
it's like when you assemble this thing, this pastiche of like ideas, each part individually almost doesn't work. But when you put it together, like the production on all those records, like they sound weird and like, but it all kind of creates this atmosphere and that really works. So
Yeah,
yeah, so for me, the Sam Hain's definitely number one. I would say number two is Misfits, only because they don't have a single bad song really.
yeah,
You know,
pretty much.
yeah. Danzig is third, and I would say Danzig 1 and 2 probably are two of the best like hard rock albums ever made, really.
Right.
But I will go to bat for every Danzig record. I mean,
Same. Like
I'm
you,
yeah, yeah,
you were talking about being an Argento fanboy and going to bat for his bad movies earlier, and I was going to mention,
yeah.
people like to shit on anything after Danzig 4, but I think there's great stuff on almost every record after that.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, that's exactly the point. I the same way. I listen to every record in his catalog, and however, the percentage of top-notch material is lower if you look at his
Right.
catalog as the
Yeah.
Danzig output as a whole
Yeah.
versus
Compared to the other ones.
yeah. So that's why
Yeah.
the Danzig band is like the third one on my hierarchy there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. So we put
Makes
together
sense.
this great list, and you want to just pick some of the highlights, or we got like I don't know, like almost 2 hours of material on there, I think. So
Yeah. I don't know. How do you want to do it?
well, the first I'll kick this off by asking you. There's one band in particular that I hadn't heard on this list. That the band Vampire.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what's their
So we
story?
can you want to talk about Vampire?
Yeah, I haven't heard
All
of
right.
them.
Yeah, so they're from Sweden. I guess a few years back they kind of had some underground buzz. They put out a demo and an EP, I think, and that ended up getting them signed to Century. They think they have like 3 full lengths now. This EP, this song that I picked, "Pyre the Harvest Queen," is off an EP that they did, and like thematically and obviously is perfect for this time of the year. And one thing that's I think you would enjoy about this band is that the guy, the vocalist, he goes by Hand of Doom. I guess his name is Lars. His lyrics are pretty incredible. I think they're really like Howardian. They remind me a lot of Robert Howard's poetry, the way that he puts everything together. So
Yeah, I mean the name of this EP is Sumerian Shade.
yeah,
So
yeah, exactly.
real quick about Howard, are you also a fan of his horror stories too?
Yeah, for sure.
Man, I think
I was actually just at the used bookstore earlier today and walked by a Howard horror story compilation and remembered that I already had it. So
I think we were talking about werewolves earlier. His Wolf's Head story is probably one of the coolest werewolf stories.
yeah,
I think
that
I've
is
ever
a good
read.
one.
Yeah. The Blackstone is also another good one.
Yeah, Blackstone's probably my favorite of his horror stories.
It's funny.
I guess
I'm sorry.
most of the Solomon Kane stories are kind of horror stories also.
That's definitely a character that slips by a lot of people. As far as like checking out Robert E. Howard's work, people want to read,
Yeah,
think of Conan, maybe Cull, but Solomon Kane's a little bit more of a subtle character in some ways because he's not this
yeah,
like brawny, like barbarian guy.
right.
He's actually
It's
Christian.
definitely cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Puritan swordsman.
Yeah. Yeah. So any particular highlights? I mean, I have some notes about my tracks, but some of the more notable tracks that you picked here, a lot of the stuff's really cool. Like I would have there's things on here that I definitely would have picked too, man. I would have picked the Electric Wizard Dunwich story, Dunwich song too.
Yeah, it's a good one for sure. I guess another one that stands out that I guess maybe a lot of people haven't heard is that Amoebic song, "God of the Green," off the last album they did whenever they got back together. I like that one a lot.
I have that record and I listened to it maybe a handful of times, but now you put these two tracks on this playlist and it's motivated me to investigate more of that record and like to spend more time with it, I think.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. Like most of the tracks are different from each other as well. Like that one particularly, "God of the Grain," like goes back to the harvest theme and the idea of like a dying and rising god as like monomythical religious figure.
Do you
I
like
love
their
the
earlier material as well?
yeah, actually I've been digging through it a little bit. I'm not as familiar with it as a lot of people are, but it's definitely cool.
This particular record, Sonic Mass, it's do you know the band Rudimentary Peni?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm familiar with them, but I haven't listened a lot.
They have one record that's called Death Church, which is like
Yeah,
a little bit of a departure from their older sound. And when I was and I probably wrongly associate Amoebics and Rudimentary Peni only because they're like old bands that are like crustier and sort of have
Right.
this like, you know, a lot of kids that hang out at ABC No Rio back in the 90s used to have those patches on their you know, their jackets and stuff.
Yeah.
So like I associate those bands. But yeah,
Yeah.
Death Church was like the kind of darker like departure record. And I feel like this Sonic Mass record is definitely going in a different direction than their earlier stuff. It's like, you know, there's more you know, dynamics and things like that on it.
Yeah, for sure. And that God of the Grain song particularly, I love the tribal drumming and just like the punchy guitar parts.
Which Call Today, Electric Wizard record that's probably out of my favorite album by them actually.
Yeah, it's that was, I think, the first album of theirs that I heard, and it's up there for me with probably that one and then Dope Throne. The
That
Dunwich song is cool because it's like a faster Electric Wizard song.
Yeah, there's a lot of catchy like songwriting on that particular record too.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was one of the we had a chance to play with them over in England on this festival called Temples Festival.
Yeah.
And they were so fucking loud, man.
I wanted to see them last time they came to the US, but I think that we had a show out of town or we're on tour or something. I can't remember. But one day.
You've got In Solitude on here. That's a band that like I don't think I've spent enough time listening to them. I saw them play one time. I think they toured with Watain, I believe.
Yeah.
And I think that was the only time I saw them live, but I only really know them live, and they're quite good live. So the records,
Right.
you know, like I guess this is probably a good record to start with, Sister, I guess, right?
Yeah, I think you'd be into that one. I guess their first two are a little more, I don't know, like the first one, everyone cites like Iron Maiden influences, but more evil. The second one, people kind of compare to Merciful Fate, even though I don't really think it sounds like that. The third one has a little bit more of like dark goth rock feel to it.
Is that Sister? This track?
Yeah,
is
yeah,
okay.
that's that one.
Now I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I'm not familiar with this particular High on Fire song, but I see the album is De Vermis Mysterious.
Yeah.
I don't know that record at all.
So we got Danzig Soul on Fire, which I thought was, you know, obviously seasonally appropriate with the mention of Samhain and everything. Just a cool, straightforward rock and roll song, and like the brass section and the kind of background vocals make it feel, you know, larger than life in a way, I guess.
Yeah, Danzig kind of is. I would say Danzig and Pete Steele are like the autumn men in some ways. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like it's just this total rock and roll song, but it's this Danzig-y pagan love song. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. I think I have some Danzig on my part of the playlist as well.
All right, cool. All right, ready for another one?
Yeah, let's rip.
Cool. Let's see. Oh, AFI Fall Children, pretty self-explanatory. I think probably everyone within a certain age range either grew up with this EP or, you know, heard it as a young adult, and it's stuck with them. I know it means a lot to me personally.
They also do a cover of Halloween too, don't they? AFI.
Yeah, it's on that same EP.
Yeah, no, that's a cool EP, definitely.
Yeah, it's really cool, and I myself am a fall child, literally and figuratively. So.
Oh, really? Your birthday's in the fall?
Yep.
Awesome.
It's also has to do with one of the reasons I picked one of your songs, actually. And
Oh no.
Everyone listening, I did ask Mike's permission to put one of his own band songs on my list. He can vouch for that. But yeah, I was born in November, and I love werewolves. So, and the song kicks ass, so I had to go with it. Ever since it came out, it's jumped way up there.
Oh, thanks, man. Yeah, that's you know, it's obviously from the title, kind of tipping the hat to just the whole idea of Samhain and end of the harvest and Samhain and werewolves. So it all fits together, you know.
For sure. I mean, I love the lyrics. I like the hooky guitar part, like the kind of punchy part, and then the build to the melodic tremolo part with the solo in the latter half of the song.
I am not very partial to the songs on this record in general.
Oh yeah,
I feel like this is probably one of our weaker records, actually. But you know, that song is probably the one. There's like two songs on that record that I enjoy. I like that one, and Black Sunrise. I think is Black Sun Horizon rather is another track that I think is pretty good on that record.
Well, I think it's a solid record, but I know how it is with hating your own stuff.
The self-loathing of being in a band.
Yeah. I'm like sitting here with all this unreleased material. I'm like, this shit's old.
Yeah, dude.
I don't even want to record this.
We're in the pre-production phases of like trying to make a new album for sometime next year. Like we're gonna try to record it in early next year. And I'm like, sitting here in my little studio, just like listening to stuff and be like, this all sucks. This is terrible. Fucking, I'm gonna delete everything. But it's like, it's like the worst fucking time, man. It's the worst and the best part of being in a band.
I know that struggle.
Yeah. It's funny. So those are your highlights?
Yeah, I think those are my my picks that I sent you. It's funny because you had messaged me. You're like, let's just try to pick like 6 each, and I was like, well, I only sent you 5, but
well,
it makes sense now.
Yeah.
Fucking Spotify links.
As I mentioned, Pete Steele and Glenn Danzig are like the guys who you think of when this time of year rolls around. So these are just highlights of the stuff that I have on the playlist. So this is Anesthesia by Typo Negative. And it's just and Typo, when October comes around, or even September, that's when I start really digging into listening to Typo Negative.
Yeah. As soon as it starts getting a little bit cold and orange outside.
Yeah. But they also sound great in the summer too, by the way. Typo Negative. They're also like a great summer band, but they're more apt for the winter. And and I didn't want to pick, I mean, it's so obvious to pick Black Number One,
Yeah.
That song is like so like overplayed and everything and obvious. But this song Anesthesia is just so moody and big sounding and just somber. And I like just that this record reminds me of this time of year,
Yeah.
And there's a couple of bands that are relatively new, at least in my consciousness. Earlier this year, I discovered this band, Lebanon Hanover.
Right.
Yeah, my buddy Mike G, who plays in Scorpion Throne with me, and is also in this band Replicant, which is an excellent, technical death metal kind of band from Jersey here. Cool. He sent me a link to not this song, but one of their other songs called Gallow Dance.
Yeah, I was gonna ask. I was gonna say I'm a big fan of that song by them for sure.
Yeah, totally.
I've been meaning to dig more into them. Like I've only listened to a handful of their songs, but I definitely dig them.
So I dug really hard into their music, and I was like obsessing, watching all their videos, and the song "The Last Thing," the end of that, Larissa Iceglass is standing in this pumpkin field basically, and I'm like,
yeah.
When I first was checking this out, it was spring, and I'm like,
Right.
I can't wait for the autumn to listen to this song. Like once this is going
It'll
to
be
be
even better.
yeah, this is going to be even better once it gets cold out, you know.
Yeah.
And sure enough, it is. It's great. It's just like part of my like daily listening right now is this
Yeah, that's
particular
awesome.
record. You know, and then there's another band that I discovered on tour this summer called Twin Tribes, and you know they've been around for a while, but
Yeah.
they're kind of like the one record they have, Ceremony. All their records are
Mm,
great, but Ceremony is like the one. That's like if
right.
anyone out there who doesn't know Twin Tribes, I think a lot of people are starting to catch on to them these days because they toured with Ghost, and you know they're crossing over, I think, into like
Right.
rock music instead of the goth sort of Batcave types that probably like their other records. But yeah, Heart and Feather, that's the track. That's like the Just Like Heaven of that record, really. You know
Right.
what I mean? It's like that's going to be their big hit, if you ask
That's
me,
that's
man.
the one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So have you heard them? Are you familiar with them?
Yeah, I've heard him a little bit, but I haven't like dug into any of their full albums, but I'm gonna have to check that one out now.
It's great. I really, like I said, they're a hard volume, heavy playlist rotation right now for me, man.
Awesome.
And the Cramps, it wouldn't be Halloween, November Coming Fire without the Cramps, and the song Green Fuzz, which is actually a cover by a garage band aptly titled Green Fuzz. So you're and this song is back when I was in high school, I was getting ready to go to college, and the dude that played bass in my high school band made me a mixtape, and this song was on it, and I just remember cruising around like, getting ready to go
Yeah.
off to school. You know what I mean? This song just reminds me of that autumn, late end of summer kind of vibe.
Yeah.
And it always
That stuff's the best. Like certain, stuff from a particular place and time, it sticks with you.
yeah, that's kind of like most of my playlist
Yeah.
is more of like a conceptual autumn thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And of course, Roy Orbison, King of the Night, Roy
Absolutely.
Orbison, Glenn Danzig, and Pete Steele are like
Yeah.
the nighttime autumn men. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Absolutely. That's you picked In Dreams, right?
Yes.
Yeah. It's my favorite Roy Orbison song.
And when that's that fall when I went to college, I actually saw Blue Velvet in the autumn. And
Oh, that's cool.
yeah, so this song was in the soundtrack, and I remember
Yeah, yeah.
I had to see
I was
the
gonna
movie twice actually, because the first time I went, I took this young lady that I had met, and
yeah.
we right when
Right.
Frank Booth scene is when she had to leave. She was like, I can't watch this. I have to leave. So I left with her,
Uh,
and then I'm like, fuck, man, I want to watch the rest of this movie. So she was like traumatized by that scene, and then like a couple weeks
just
later, I went back to watch it again, and I saw the entire thing. So
I'm just having a hard time not spouting off Frank Booth quotes right now.
in a way,
But
that
yeah,
was Dennis Hopper's kind of comeback film. I think
yeah,
yeah, right.
yeah. I was gonna say In Dreams is a great song even without the Blue Velvet associations. But
Yeah.
yeah, great movie, great song.
Well, a lot of just in general, music from that time period. My parents used to listen to a lot of this stuff, and I remember
Yeah,
growing up listening to all this music. Way before I got into rock music, when I was like a
yeah. My
young kid.
Yeah, when I was like a kid, my dad was a big Roy Orbison fan as well.
And additionally, the kind of like girl group stuff, and artists like the Flamingos and Frank
Right.
Sinatra, like some of the Torch songs, like that Frank
Yeah.
Sinatra had, like that was all really, really weighed in heavily on my my childhood, basically, listening to that. And Roy, especially when I was a kid, I found out how funny looking that dude was too, man. And I was just like, man, this guy is you can hear the loneliness in this dude's voice.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. That song is it's such a cool song because it's it's a great song. It did really well, but it's also just such a weird song. Like there are no repeating parts. It's just kind of like this stream of consciousness. I don't know. It's something else.
Yeah, I was going to mention that actually. It's despite that fact, because he came around during the pop song era. Verse chorus,
Mm-hmm.
verse chorus, bridge.
Yeah.
There's really none of that in this track.
Right.
Yeah.
Just moves from part to part.
Have you are you familiar with the Gun Club at all?
I am not.
Oh, dude. Yeah. I have the song Fire Spirit. I put that on here because I wasn't sure if you knew about them.
Yeah.
And that's off of their first full-length record, Fire of Love. And once again, this is a record I discovered in the fall, and this record particularly reminds me of that time of year. Pretty much around the same time I discovered the Cramps. And coincidentally, Kid Congo played in the Gun Club as well as the Cramps too. So there's a crossover with those bands. And
I need to dig into them.
Yeah, man, it's that particular record is like a really good starting point for them. Let's see, one more highlight here. I discovered this earlier this year too. There's a band called Crew Lies, and they did a remix of Spiritual Cramp by Christian Death. And
cool.
That's like a very unique update of that song. I don't know how Roz would feel about it particularly, but unfortunately,
right.
He's passed from this mortal coil, so he doesn't really have a say in the matter at this stage. But
that's funny because I almost picked Spiritual Cramp to put on my list.
Yeah, that's kind of like their classic. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like a classic track. And yeah, so those are highlights. You guys can check out this playlist either on the Everything Went Black website in the entry for this particular episode, or you can just go to me on Spotify, and all of the Everything Went Black playlists are up there. And I always had a lot of fun doing these things. And yeah, thanks, Jacob. I appreciate your participation in this.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was good to catch up and pick some songs and share some stuff maybe people haven't heard.
Yeah. Well, hopefully I'll see you sooner than later. And good luck with everything, man.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
To walk the night.